So, finally, it is time for Sommerleigh Pollonais, aka MovieJunkie for Life, to share her top 15 lists. So, of course, feel free to share your criteria as far as you were able to, compile this list here. And, before you jump into the list proper, I would love to hear your honorable mentions, as in the ones that, just couldn't make it to the final draft, if you will. So yeah, Summer, take it
Right.
away. Your criteria, followed by honorable mentions, followed by top 15.
Okay. Well, starting off with my qualifiers, I tried to whittle it down based on four things. First of all, the initial viewing had to have blown me away. The first time you see it, it's like, oh my gosh, best horror movie ever, that sort of thing. Whether or not it kept to that level, that might be another thing, but that was one of my qualifiers. Secondly, it had to have done something original or maybe just take something old and made it feel new again. Because as we know, there's nothing really new under the sun, but a lot of talented people out there have managed to take what feels old and make it, to bring it to us in a way that is either more relatable to the era that it's set in, um, as well as, just throwing some unexpected delights. Number three for me was replayability, really. It's one thing to see a movie and enjoy it. It's a whole other thing to want to rewatch it time and time again. And even the best of films, I've seen some really top-notch movies that I really have no desire to say I would revisit anytime soon. So it had to have that replayability, as I like to call it. And my fourth thing was that in my mind, it had to score like seven or higher.
All right, sounds reasonable enough. So yeah, honorable mentions.
Right. So getting right into my honorable mentions, and these are I wouldn't say in any particular order. It's just some movies that came to mind while I was working on my top 15. The first one, of course, being The Others, starring Nicole Kidman.
Right.
That movie, yeah, first time I saw it, it again, movies like this when they have these types of twists, it doesn't have the same impact the second or third time around, whatever. But that doesn't take away anything from how amazing this movie is. Atmospheric, it's chilling, and it really leaves you with a sense of confusion while you're watching it, but in the best ways possible. I love a movie that can keep me guessing. Next on my list was Final Destination, part
Uh,
one, the first one. Talk about taking something old and making it feel new again. This is Final Destination. Funny enough, I think it fits in it kind of straddles the line between a slasher and a paranormal. Strangely enough, you can see death itself feels like like a Jason Voorhees type character hunting down these people and taking them out, even though we never see the character of death. So yeah, Final Destination, it really kicked off something quite interesting, and it's still kicking, to this day. So it had to make that list. This next one, it might be a little contentious because there are some people, if it's not bloody and gory or whatever, they don't count it as horror. But I rank this one, and that's Constantine, Keanu Reeves, starring
uh.
Constantine. This movie for me, first of all, it is horror. If you look at what it is about, it is horror. But it's not scary. I get that, but it's definitely entertaining. I think the world building here for what this movie it does a really fantastic job of pulling you into this world of this private eye detective type guy who is he's not the friendliest of people, but he's very good at what he does, and what he does is take on the supernatural. And the mystery at play here with this sister that dies, and it turns out she has a twin who wants to figure out why her sister, who was deeply religious, would commit suicide. It all just sucks you in. I love a good comic related horror. I'm one of those people that every time the DC animated universe puts out one of their horror based movies, I get super excited. Anything to do with Justice League Dark. So yeah, I absolutely enjoyed this one, and it is a movie that I've seen time and time again. I rewatched it this year as well. So as even though Keanu Reeves may not be um the version of Constantine that most of us had in mind going into it. I think he did a solid job of making the character his own. So yeah, that has to be my honorable mention list.
Right. Well,
Um, mhm.
sorry to interject, right? But I
So,
feel like I am one of a few people who was genuinely creeped out by that film the first time I saw it, because it's just all the weird stuff
mm,
that took place in the world building. Like, I still to this day find it so weird that you have, like, to get into purgatory you have to fill up bathtub. I think it is like about halfway and
yeah,
then dip
yeah,
yourself in. That shit
Yeah.
freaked me out. I was like, what is
yeah,
this?
That, well,
Yeah.
actually, Mark, just to interject here,
Uh-huh.
water has always been seen as a conductor for the supernatural, for the paranormal. Water is like
Oh.
one
that's
of the
right.
biggest conductors. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
is it because of baptism or the allusion to baptism? Is it?
I
I'm,
think so.
I'm,
I think so. And,
I'm
and
not
it,
too
it's
sure.
been one of the most powerful elements in the world.
Yeah.
I,
And let me tell you, I agree with Matthew. There were some pretty creepy scenes during Constantine. Enough
Yeah.
for you to be
mhm,
terrified.
Yeah, but that's not
mhm,
me saying that I don't want to rewatch it, but like I only saw it I think like once or twice when it was on cable. I was a little too creeped out by the premise like I didn't bother to go and see it theatrically, so I waited till it
Uh-huh.
came out on cable, saw it, I was creeped out by it,
right.
watched it again, creeped out by it again, but I enjoyed it. But I have not seen it since. And I was hoping that because I was hearing I think like a year or so ago that we were gonna get a sequel, but I don't think they're gonna do it again. I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
I'll probably rewatch it, man. 'Cause it's been a long while, right? It's been a long while, like 20 years to be exact, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know how possible it is for the sequel because let's face it, Keanu has some age on him now. So I don't know how possible a sequel with Keanu will be, how
Mhm.
realistic it will be. Maybe they might have to use too much CGI and that will kind of kill the vibe of the entire film. If they
Yeah,
CGI too much,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
I don't need a sequel. I don't need a sequel. But
Yeah, me neither.
I just think it's a fun horror movie to rewatch, sort of thing. Next on my list would be Zombieland. Um,
Nice. Which we
I just
spoke about last year for the first season of this show. Yep.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the opening is one of the best openings in horror movie history. I think
Agreed.
anytime you can very quickly establish your world in a way that's like, okay, this is what where we are, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing, bam, and you suck me in, and I think that's amazing. And for the most part, I think that's why I enjoyed the first one much more than the second. I thought the second went a little bit too big, if that makes any sense. And I also felt, because I like the intimacy of this movie surrounding these strangers that are basically forced to become a family. In a world where caring about anybody could be to your own detriment. And so it's one of those movies that's fun, but it also has these heartfelt moments that never take up too much time, considering this is a movie called Zombieland. And I just think it's really well balanced, well paced, and everything. Zombie movies are something that I enjoy, but I wouldn't say like I'm a zombie fan. So when you have a movie like this that catches you like this, I quite enjoy it. And it's very easy to rewatch. It's one of those fun movies that you can put on during the spooky season, and just, it doesn't take anything to bring together a group of people, even people who don't really like horror. And I think they would find something to enjoy in this movie. Next one on my list is similar in terms of the tone being kind of comical, and that's Slither.
Uh-huh.
I
Okay.
don't know how
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't know how many people would sit to watch this, because some people can't handle body horror.
It's
Listen,
very
I
good.
am right. Yeah, I'm right there. I'm right there when it comes to body horror. I could be a little bit like, this is too much. But Slither is so funny. It's such a great balance of horror and comedy, with some great characters, and some of the best character actors they have out there, like Nathan Fillion. Um, it's just one of those movies that I may not rewatch it like constantly, but I'll see it in my DVD collection and be like, hey, I haven't seen this for a while. and pull it out and put it in. So yeah, if you like gross out horror, so that has definitely got you covered. Next on my list is The Babadook,
Okay,
a
that's
movie
an
that I think
honorable mention. Huh.
yeah. I said this, like I said, it was hard to whittle down. It was hard to whittle down, but I wasn't gonna leave it off entirely, so it had to make the honorable mentions because The Babadook is like it falls in line with in terms of my criteria. I do consider it top notch. I do think it's a movie that it scores 7 or higher. Um, and it does twist, it does play with, those themes of the supernatural or is this psychological and stuff like some of the classics do. But in terms of replayability, I don't know how replayable I would consider a movie like The Babadook because one, uh, I'm sorry, but I wanted to punch that little boy in the face. I know, I know
No,
that's a
that's the
horrible thing
point.
to
Like the
say.
first half of the movie, you want to beat this kid because he's a pain,
Yeah,
right? But then you feel sorry
right.
for him because of what's going on with his mom, right? Yeah.
Yes, and especially when you're dealing with a kid who maybe special needs, that sort of thing. So I get it. I absolutely get it. But Lord, it's hard to say I would sit down and watch it again and have to deal with that little boy. And then, but I absolutely love the performances here. I'm always blown away when a horror director can take a very modest budget and a very like these individual locations and just make you feel like you are completely immersed in this person's world. It feels larger than it actually is because when you look back at the Babadook, it doesn't really have that many different locations, and it's really just these, for the most part, these two characters and maybe her sister, and yet we have this whole thing that feels larger than life and scarier than anything else. There are moments in here that are truly, truly spine tingling, especially all of us have had that experience. You get up in the middle of the night and you see something in the corner and you're asking yourself, is that my hoodie? Is that a jacket? What is that?
I don't
What
even
is
get
that?
me started on that. Just last night, that
Right?
just last night that happened to me, and I was like, "Dear Lord, please."
Oh wow.
Yeah, for me that's why it would make my honorable mentions, but not so much my top 15. So next on my list is Fear Street Part 2.
Okay. Never
Specifically
saw
Part
any of
2.
them. Never saw any of them.
The trilogy is the one that really is set up the Fear Street. I think it's a series of books, and the
Yes,
trilogy is where the
time.
story feels most cohesive in that
Mhm.
we have two towns, a sunny side and shady side. It sounds
Yes,
like something out of an Archie comic, but there you go.
yes,
And they both kind of, when you put about, they both have like a supernatural thing going on, but it's a case of one of these towns bear the brunt of a curse, and the other one benefits from that curse. So without giving anything away, that's what it is. And this curse has been around since way back in the day. It was triggered by, a witch and all that sort of thing. So it comes in three parts because it has different eras, and mine happens to be the second one is my favorite because it's set in Alicia, stop me if I'm wrong, it's like the 70s, right?
1970.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's so reminiscent of Friday the 13th. It's like Friday the 13th on acid. I
yes,
absolutely love it. Right. It's definitely a love letter to fans of slashers. It does so much right. It's just to me, it's perfect. Even if the other two movies did not exist, I could watch this on its own and absolutely enjoy it. So yeah, that gets an honorable mention for sure. Next in line is a film that I don't think many people know about, but it's a movie that it absolutely blew me away when I first saw it, and it's called The Devil's Candy. And
Mm.
it's one of those movies that if you're into heavy metal, if you're into art, there's a lot to enjoy there. But if you're just a fan of horror and a fan of really good I know Alicia tends to like these types of stories as well. Stories where it's a family kind of fighting against an evil, that sort of thing. This movie
yes.
is that. And It stars Ethan Embry. If you're a fan of Empire Records, you would know who he is. And he's a painter who seems to be possessed by a force that is haunting their home, this home they move into. So it has like it takes inspiration from stuff like The Shining, but it's very much its own movie. And I would hate to spoil it for anybody who wants to see it. I highly recommend checking it out. It's just so atmospheric and it's so interesting, so well acted. Not a huge cast, but it's just one of the things I think that we are aware about this movie is the fear is palpable from the very beginning. The sense of dread that's there from the very beginning. But the characters are so well written and so well acted that it's one of those movies where you find yourself praying nothing bad happens to these people. And that is such a rarity in horror because most people will tell you watch a horror movie, you don't really get a lot of horror. They focus more on the scares than investing in in the characters. But that's to the detriment of the movie itself because in horror, if I care about these people, I'm going to get more afraid and I'm going to get more terrified if they are in harm's way. So The Devil's Candy does a really good job of all of that. My next film, this one, it made a list that I created where I talked about movies that I initially disliked when I first saw it, and now I cannot stop watching, and that's As Above, So Below.
Oh, have not
And
seen that as yet. I have
Oh,
not as
yes,
yet.
it's a very good
yeah,
one, man. You should check it out at least once in your lifetime.
I'm so glad to know Alicia likes this too because this movie, I know she, like me, she's not a big fan of found footage. Um, which is like originally when I watched this movie, I think I kind of dismissed it on the fact that it's just another found footage film.
Yeah,
Sitting down and rewatching it, the story here is so smart. It blows my mind to when you watch it unfold how many layers and how smart this film is. So it's about this girl who is her father died in search of the philosopher's stone, and she decides to, because he died with his legacy tainted, she decides to get a group of people and basically prove that the philosopher's stone exists by finding it. And she's willing to risk people's lives, her own life,
yeah,
everything. And in doing so, you kind of discover, I guess for want of a better term, that hell truly does exist. So As
yep,
Above, So Below is just, it's really, really good. And it's one of those found footage movies like Wreck that, the reason for them using cameras is validated.
yeah.
It's valid. So I'm all for it. And it's definitely one that I rewatch every now and again. My next film on my list I have here, this one is another one, and that's Creep. And Creep tells this story. Creep is very strange in the sense that it's,
I was on summer watching that entire movie. I only watched it once.
yeah, I think it's the performance. The actor is so good in the role that it's really, he has this thing he does, and I feel it's because to me, seems like he hardly blinks. And he has a smile that never reaches his eyes, and it's just so disconcerting. So this man he sends her like a Craigslist ad, I guess, a Craigslist ad, saying that he wants somebody to record his last messages. He's dying, and he wants somebody to do that. And a young videographer, he's in need of the money. He takes the job. But this man, from the very beginning, this man's behavior gets very odd, and the further along it goes, it starts to goes beyond odd and into, I am wondering if I am in serious danger being around this person or not. And
Yeah,
it's one of those movies where it may frustrate you a bit because we tell ourselves that in the same position, we would have said, you know what, that this is enough. I'm done. I'm out of here. But it really is an exercise in what, I guess, manners could be our greatest enemy because we tend to not to want to offend people. Good people don't want to make anybody feel hurt or uncomfortable. So we tend to shut off that side of ourselves that says we're in danger or this is not normal. because we don't want to come across as rude or biased or prejudiced or whatever. And this movie kind of takes that to the worst conclusion, you know. So yeah, I actually think the second one is better than the first. So if you want to watch Creep 2 as well, is really really strong. Creep 2, I think they look like they want to do a part 3. But yeah, I recommend checking it out. If you like character driven horror, definitely check this one out. And next on my list is Insidious. Um,
I. What
yes,
one of Alicia's favorites? I know that. Mm.
yes,
Uh,
yes. Alicia and I, we have certain things in common when it comes to. I think for me, it's with these types of movies. I know Alicia has this. She's very intrigued and very knowledgeable about the paranormal side of things, especially when it comes to haunted houses and haunted people and that sort of thing.
yeah.
Um, for me, Insidious touched on an old childhood trauma where I struggled with night terrors as a child, up until about the age of 7 or 8. Really, really severe night terrors and sleepwalking and that sort of thing. So Dalton's issues was something that sort of triggered me. Because when you have night terrors, basically your nightmares seem as vivid as they could possibly be. Um, and you really get this sense of, you feel like you're leaving your body, you're traveling. It feels difficult to wake up when you're done. You wake up, you're exhausted, and because you are lacking sleep as well, because insomnia becomes part of it. It all kind of meshes to, if, as you guys may know, if you're not getting enough sleep, you start to hallucinate while you're awake. Now
Yeah.
imagine being a child and experiencing all of these things. And it really took a long time before. Thank God, my mom saw the issue and she got me help. But it took a minute, and a lot of it I don't know if you want to call it supernatural, if you want to say that there might have been a supernatural element to any of that. I'll be honest with you, I swing back and forth because some of the things I went through, there's no real explanation, scientific explanation for it. But Insidious drew me in because of that, because of what was going on with Dalton. And then you add to that some of the best jump scares that I've seen in modern cinema. And I was hooked. It's definitely, yeah, it's not, it's, uh, I would put Insidious up there with The Conjuring if only Insidious had managed to keep the, I should say, the, yes, yes, that's the perfect word. It couldn't keep the momentum going.
Oh,
And I think that's because they made the misstep of killing off the one character that was kind of the breakout character, right? Played by Lynchie. I think killing her, they realized their mistake because if you look at the sequels, sequels are prequels that focus on her. But
yeah.
yeah, it's Insidious is definitely one of those movies that it plays a lot with like stuff hidden in the background. I absolutely love horror movies that do that, that make you have to stop and say, "Wait, you saw that? Did you see that?" I love stuff like that. The Exorcist was the first time I saw a movie that did stuff like that, and yeah, Insidious does it really well. Next in line for me is The Black Phone. That was
Okay,
a movie
okay,
that
okay. I
that
enjoy
actually
that
made
one.
my
Mm.
top list. Yes,
Yeah.
that made my top list. I actually struggle whether or not I should have put that in my top 15, but there's just so much good stuff to choose from past 25 years. But yeah, The Black Phone. I love horror movies that are centered on children as the heroes. I think that's why I've always been drawn to Stephen King. He does that a lot. And The Black Phone is that type of movie. Of course, The Black Phone was written by, as the novella written by Joe Hill, I think it is. So,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So, you see his dad's inspirations there. But yeah, the story of the story itself is a real fear. You have somebody going around abducting children, and they're never coming back home. And then you throw in that paranormal side to that. And these kids, the little girl especially, they do such a amazing job of making these characters likable and relatable in the sense that we know what it is to be a kid and you're trying to tell an adult, hey, this is what's happening and nobody's listening to you. So, and I don't know about you guys, but I did find once stuff started happening with that phone, that stuff was creepy. That was some really, really
Oh,
creepy stuff.
oh,
So, yeah. So
yeah, because again, you used to be paranormal in that these
mhm,
red kids are guiding this boy. They're basically
mhm.
guiding him from beyond the grave.
Yep. Yeah, and I love him finding his own self and his own strength because we do see a character who's very much beat down in life. His sister is braver than him in a lot of ways, and he's forced to find that courage in himself. So all of that works really well. I know they're doing a sequel, but I have no clue what direction that will go in. But I'm on board. Hopefully it's as fun as the first one.
It's coming out this month, I think on the 17th or something like that.
Right, right. My third to last is Quiet Place Day One. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It is one of those movies where my initial viewing, I thought it was good, but I didn't really get into it until I watched it the second time. And it's just the performances of Lupita Nyong'o and sorry, I always forget this guy's name. To Jeremy Jeffrey. But the just their interactions, and like I said, it brings me back to whenever you can create a horror movie where you're completely invested in what happens to these two people.
The kitty cat is a
Yeah.
start.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Kitty Cat is a star too. And huge props to Lupita Nyong'o because apparently she had a really bad phobia about cats prior to the movie, and she even asked the director if it could be a
Yeah.
dog instead of a cat.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
he said no. He said absolutely not. It has to be a cat. And
Yeah.
she hired a therapist and she worked through it. So cheers to her. But yeah, everything. I think Day One is a solid entry. Because for me, A Quiet Place, of course, like everybody else, the first movie blew me away. But the second movie for me, I thought it was good, but I was disappointed that it didn't offer more because it felt a lot like the first movie in terms of I'm like, okay, I'm two films in now, and I still don't really know much about these creatures. So what exactly has part two offered me beyond
Yeah.
knowing? Oh, beyond knowing here are some more people. So I was disappointed by part two. I wouldn't lie.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah.
day one was a solid entry, and I would love to see more. I think that's the direction to go in the sense that if they're going to do more Quiet Place movies, I would love to see them do standalone stories with different characters in
Right.
different parts of the world and what they're going through. So next on my list, again another strange one, but a movie that it's very slow. It's a very slow film, and I know some people they don't, they lose interest if the movie isn't moving at a faster pace. But it's slow with a reason. It's slow for a reason, and it tells the story of a woman who she meets up with this guy who is an expert in the occult, and they're basically doing this really, really dangerous ritual that will grant them one wish. Now, I'm going to give away a little bit of something here. The point of the ritual is to get an angel to appear because an angel of God will appear and like you could get one wish. And it's just watching how far a person is willing to go to, especially when grief is involved. This movie absolutely I couldn't look away. It's like it's one of those things where you're like, this is not a good idea, but you can't seem to look away. And it because it's slow, you feel that sense of arduousness that these people must be feeling, and you can't eat and you can't drink, and it makes you feel like, oh my god, I need to drink something, I need to eat something. You feel yourself slowly going insane watching this. And I mean that in the best way possible. So if I know, like I said, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You may watch it and be like, "Some, I don't know what you're talking about. That was so boring." But I think it's one of those movies that the payoff is worth it. It's worth sitting through, and getting to that and just feeling that dread come down on you for that big reveal in the end, because it's quite a reveal. And the last one on my honorable
Wait.
mention.
That's so. Summer. What was the name of the film?
You didn't say the name.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, I didn't. A dark
No.
song.
I had a mind it was that
Oh, a
song,
dark
but you
song.
didn't say
Okay, never
Yeah,
heard
I'm
of that.
sorry. Yeah, a dark song. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. So it
okay,
yeah.
came out
okay.
a few. Yeah, it came out a few years ago. I think it was 2016. I saw it around 2020, but it was because somebody recommended it to me. But yeah, it was worth it. And the last one on my honorables mention will be Smile Too,
All right.
because that will
I
be
have
the
not seen
same.
any of the Smiles. I heard they were really good, especially that one.
The first one is a bit silly for me. Now, the first one, I think the things for me that I don't know if Alicia would agree, but the first one, I think where I struggle is I don't like the protagonist, and it's
I
really hard.
know, right? I know. I didn't like Peter. It's like, how am
Okay,
I supposed to get behind you and support you
right,
if I don't really care what happens to you? And that's the
right.
main
Matthew, you
problem with
see,
that.
and we never even talked about it before, and she has the same problem I do, right? um, yeah, it's really hard to care about somebody, when you don't like the protagonist. I don't really care that you're going through all this horrible stuff. Um,
Right.
that that said, the entity is one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in my entire life, and I don't know what level of acid you had to be dropping to come up with something like that. Um, right? But Smile
Like, you
too,
know, a double take when somebody's smiling at you, kind of creepy. Like, no.
right? But I think Smile too, it was one of those things where it's always really hard to see when you're watching a story with somebody who is trying to get their life together and they're not a
Mhm.
bad person,
Right.
and yet all of this horrible stuff is happening to them.
Mhm.
It always, to me, it's always more devastating when you're
Yes.
dealing with it from that point of view. It's so, this is watching this character, and I mean Naomi Scott kills it, absolutely
Oh,
kills it.
yeah.
I didn't even realize she's Jasmine from the Aladdin remake until I looked into it, because she looks so different. I didn't realize it was the same person. Not only is this movie, it's like very, how to put it, it's very tense. There's a lot of the build up, because you really do think, okay, the second time around, maybe this person will get away from this entity.
Mhm.
They do such a good job of giving you hope just to snatch it away. that
Yeah.
Yeah, coupled with her performance, I quite enjoyed this. And it is one of those movies I could easily see myself watching again. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And
so
because the character is more realistic in terms of, well, who doesn't make mistakes? You know, some people make a
right,
lot of bad mistakes, but if you're
right,
trying to redeem yourself, actively redeem yourself, you're always hoping that around the corner the person gonna get the fighting chance, but
yes,
unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way.
so true.
Yeah.
And that's it for my honorable mentions.
All right, cool. Okay, so yeah, top 15. Take it away.
Getting into my top 15, starting from number 15, it's gonna be Final Destination Part 2.
Yes,
And
the film that scarred many millennials because of a certain
yes,
scene.
many of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the minute we learned to drive, we all learned to never ever drive behind any of
Oh,
those big trucks. And I think what I love so much about this movie, I'm always blown away when because it's not, well, it's not as rare now, because people have been doing such a phenomenal job in making their sequels bigger and better when it comes to horror. But it in the past, it was a rare thing when the sequel could outpace the original film or the first film. But
yeah.
Final Destination does that on so many levels. Not only do we get better character development here, but we got much better, bigger, badder kills. We got a sense of what this world was more, because the first one, I think what makes the first Final Destination as terrifying is you're really not 100% sure what is happening to these people. Second time around, okay, we get it. Death has a design, death has a plan, and now it's about trying to beat death at its game. And it
Right.
gets you what it does is now you, the audience member, thinks you can beat it too. You can
Yeah.
figure out a way out of this, because that's what we do when we watch horror. We sit there and be like, oh, I could survive that. I could figure out a way out of that. So
Yeah.
I think it's so much more, it's more entertaining than the first one. And I think Alicia said it too, there's not a film in this franchise I dislike. Even the ones that may not be as great. Like, I think the only one that I wasn't really that impressed with would have been the one with the racetrack, which I think was part 4. I think that might have
The
been
one
part
with
4. It starts with a big accident at the racetrack. Like, they go to like a NASCAR event, and there's a huge crash. And I think it starts with that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But that one was okay. But overall, I enjoy all those films. I can rewatch all of those films, no problem. Part 2, definitely my favorite. Granted, I have to say, Bloodlines may have just knocked out Part 2 for me. If I'm thinking back, I need to
It
see it
was
again.
very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to see it again. That's why I did not put it. I didn't let it take out Part 2 for me because I've only seen Bloodlines once. But Bloodlines was phenomenal, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I
Um,
loved it as well. Yeah.
yeah. Number 14 on my list is probably my favorite modern day horror anthology, because there are so many good ones out there. There really are a lot of good ones out there, but none as perfect as Trick or Treat. This is just
Yep. Another one of
Yeah.
Alicia's picks. Mhm.
Yep.
yes. This is one of those movies. It has become almost like a Nightmare Before Christmas, which is not really. That's more of a Christmas movie that people enjoy at Halloween, but
Such a
it's
different.
become, yes, it's tradition. It's become the
Yeah.
definitive Halloween movie, because Trick or Treat, it's in itself, it's a bit meta. It is a movie about Halloween and about respecting the rules of Halloween. And then we have all these stories, that center around this town and people and what they're doing during the spooky season. And we have this little entity called Sam running around, punishing those who don't get it right, who don't obey the rules. They get tricked instead of treated, so to speak. And this movie is just, I think, what makes it so perfect, besides the fact that it's one of those, most anthologies you have, like, anthologies usually made up of 4 or 5 stories, and you'll get 2 really good ones, and then, or if you're lucky, you'll get 3, and then you'll get some middle of the road stuff. But all of the Trick or Treat stories, the standalone stories, are fantastic. They're all well crafted. They're all creepy, and then you have that main thread with Sam connecting them all together, and it really is a flawless movie, especially if you're a fan of Halloween as a holiday, as much as you're a fan of the season itself. So yeah, Trick or Treat is my number 14, and that brings me to my number 13, Train to Busan. Of all
I know that's one of your favorites. I always knew that. Yeah.
yes, of all the zombie movies out there, Train to Busan is I mean, it's the only one that ever made me cry, and I think that's why for me it beats out. It's because I think I would tie this with Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead in terms of favorite zombie movies. But Train to Busan just took it to another level because it went in directions I didn't expect it to. It does what most zombie movies do, which is it shows you where the living are sometimes worse than the dead, but it also gives us a great character arc for our main protagonist, who is a man who's trying to get his daughter. He's not connecting with her. She doesn't even want to be with him. She's like, just take me to see mom. Just take me, drop me off by mommy, because you're just the absolute worst in terms of absentee fathers. And all of this stuff happens, this zombie outbreak, and in that moment, you get to see a man who not only is just trying to keep his daughter alive, but also recognizing how much he has wasted in terms of how much time he wasted in getting to know this beautiful little girl and getting to have proper moments with her outside of these traumatic ones, and just watching all of that happen while we have a zombie movie going on, the likes of World War Z is insane to me. So yeah, the Koreans did it again. Train to Busan, winner winner. My number 12 is gonna be Evil Dead Rise.
Okay. All right.
This
All
is
right.
yeah. I absolutely love this movie. It's
I,
so unapologetically cruel that I have
yes,
to
it
laugh,
is. It is. It is. It is.
right?
I liked
This,
it, but I didn't like it at the same time. I have very mixed feelings
mm,
about Evil Dead Rise.
Oh, if I could
right.
just say
Really?
one thing before you continue on, Summer, that
Sure.
title reveal is one of the best things I've ever seen in horror cinema ever.
Absolutely.
With
Oh
the
yeah.
lake,
Yes.
I love
Yes.
that. I love that so much.
Yes. It's one of the best openings, and it's a little bit of an homage to The Shining in the opening there, with that overhead shot kind of thing over the lake. So, listen. This is the thing that's been surprising me as a fan of horror. We've always had these lulls. We'll have these we'll have moments where like, oh, we have these really good movies in between, but the genre in itself was treated almost like a family member that you're embarrassed of by Hollywood for so long that, so many people was like, oh, you do horror, and so many directors, you had to have a real absolute love for this genre
Yeah.
and to show what you can do with the genre. It's not just blood and gore. And I talk
Yeah.
about that because when the first Evil Dead film was made, it was made on a zero budget of just people who wanted to make a fun, crazy horror movie. And you fast forward all these years later, and then they did that remake of Evil Dead, which I know that made Alicia's list. And I absolutely love that movie as well. I think that movie is a banger.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed. Agreed.
but,
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But it's still a remake. Much love to Fede Alvarez. I absolutely adore him and Janet Levy. Um, but it's technically still a remake. Why I think I give it to Evil Dead Rise is Evil Dead Rise continues the story, and it does it in a way that feels new, because so many times we get what I call the Star Wars treatment. It's like everybody in the entire it's a giant galaxy, and yet everybody seems to have some kind of issue with the Skywalkers. It doesn't make sense to me. So, as much as I love Ash, this is a universe where there's so much you're capable of with the Necronomicon. It doesn't always have to be Bruce Campbell at the center of the story. And I know I would probably take flack from horror movie lovers for saying that, because I love Bruce as well. If the story is worth having him at the center, like the television series, which I love, I thought that got canceled too soon.
Agreed. Three seasons, man. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could have gotten one more at least to wrap things up there. That was so much
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah.
right? But Evil Dead Rise shows that you can have other people and other stories. And it's wicked, but it's also funny enough, it's quite an endearing story, because it's a story of a woman who finds out she's pregnant, has nobody to lean on, so she runs back to her sister, who, by the way, seems to be a really good mom, right? And so watching what happens to the sister, first of all, to me, I felt that woman's pain 1,000%. I was like, oh, she doesn't deserve this. And so same same said for the kids. Just watching this family get decimated, but also watch this woman basically forced to become a mother. So her niece is the last one left, and all her maternal instinct starts to kick in to protect this child and get this child out safely. So the person who went from, I don't think I want to have this baby, to, I would destroy anything and everything to get this child out safe. You managed to put that in a story with some of the most gruesome imagery that we could possibly imagine. And that's brilliant to me. That's absolute brilliant. So yeah, I Evil Dead Rise, that's my pick for number 12. And my number 11, I went back and forth on this. I had so many choices, but I think I have to give it to It Chapter 1,
Right, nice, nice, nice. You had me
right?
a little shook there because
Wow.
I thought you
How
were gonna
could
say
you?
chapter two because I thought two was terrible, terrible, terrible,
Yeah.
terrible.
It was
I went and
terrible,
saw
yeah.
this on my birthday in IMAX with Ricardo. We walked out like, yeah, that movie was garbage. That was garbage. But the
Mhm.
first one, however, absolutely enjoyed it. Yeah. But yeah, I know
Absolutely.
Alicia. Cause we spoke about this with Sealums a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't like these it movies, but if you don't mind, just
No.
informing the audience here. Yeah, why don't you like the it remakes?
Well, the only thing actually I like about it is Skarsgård's portrayal of the clown. That is the only thing I like about it. I don't find any of the children characters that grew up to be adults. I'm not. There's a big disconnect between it for me. I don't think it's as seamless as I would have liked it to be. You understand what I mean? Somehow I just don't feel like how I felt. I know people bad talk the miniseries from back in the day, but I preferred that one because
I wouldn't say bad talking. I think for most people they just find it's too dated. But I'm sorry, when you're like 6 or 7 years old and like me, you saw EVM for the first time and you saw that trailer or
yeah
the little
yeah
TV trailer that they did and you saw Pennywise in that sewer, it's like what the
yeah
hell is
yeah.
this? That scared a lot of kids, back then.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I understand. Yes, there are parts of it that will be dated. Yes, because of when it came out. But for some reason, that emotional connection that was built with the children, and then when they became adults, I didn't get that in these new it films. I'm sorry. I wanted that. I craved it because modernizing of old stories. I really like it, especially if it's done well. But I just miss that emotional connection. It just wasn't there for me. So I basically just sat there and I was like, oh, okay, scary clown. Okay, yeah. And that's it.
Right.
That was it for me.
Someone now it's
Yeah.
time to tell us, well, Alicia in particular, how wrong we are.
Why? Well, I don't think there's ever any wrong opinions when it comes to movies. But and I do agree with her that the seamlessness of them from I think what she's referring to when she talks about that, she can stop me if I'm wrong, is there's a disconnect between the adult them and the childhood them. Now, I think this comes
Yeah,
down to yeah, I think this comes down to it's not written well. No, not knocking Andy Muschietti and his wife. They did such an amazing job with the first film. Um, I think what happens is again the book is so dense that I'm really excited for the television series because I feel like this is how it was meant to be done from the first place. It
yeah,
needs a television series. It's way
yeah,
too dense to cut down into two films.
Quick
But
question, right? As
mhm,
far as Welcome
sure,
to Derry, that's the name of it, right? Welcome to Derry, right?
yes,
It's based
yes.
on
yeah.
those same kids from the book itself. 'Cause I saw the trailer, just the first trailer.
Um,
I just
No,
swore
I
it was
think
just
it goes
another
back.
story. Like
no, what it
it's not
is
another
it's
story. It's not another story with new characters or something.
yes it is. Yes
Okay.
it is. The book itself, right? And I have read the book. The book itself, it doesn't just follow those kids, the kids from the movie. That is where the meaty stuff kind of happens, and I think that's why people focus on that for the miniseries and then for the films. But the book itself is about the town of Derry. It is about there's a lot of stuff that has happened in Derry that goes back. They do cover it very quickly through um the chubby ones, the books and the history and all of that of the town. So the TV series, it looks like it's going to touch on that stuff as well because there is some gnarly stuff. I won't give it away here if you haven't read the book that happens in Derry, and it's been that way ever since the presence of Pennywise. Pennywise is not just something that goes after the children, might be the most delicious thing in the town, but Pennywise causes destruction and death when it comes to the adults and everything like that. So there's a huge theme of racism and stuff, and something that happens there. And anywhere there is maybe a dark thought, Pennywise is there to amplify that thought. He's basically the Donald Trump of Derry. So he's there. It's Derry's gonna cover all of that. I see based on what I saw in the trailer, they're gonna go back in time, and it's going to be the adults as well being aware of what is happening here. And I think we probably will get this stuff with the kids later on. But I do love the fact that it's gonna be a much more comprehensive tale of what Pennywise is and the destruction of Derry on a psychological and supernatural level, and how it affects the adults, because we see it in the movies. They show you how the adults seem to be aware that there's something very wrong with this tongue. But what Pennywise does is he affects the adults as well. So they become ambivalent, and there's that scene in the movie where the bullies are slicing into the new boy Jim. Is this his Jim? Is his name? The little chubby one. And
I can't
the
remember, to be honest. I can't remember.
yeah, I don't know why I can't remember his name.
Familiar.
I just know he grows up to be really hot, and um, he they there's some adults passing in a car. I don't know if you guys remember that, and he looks to them for help, and they look away. And I think there's a shot of a red balloon in the back seat of the car, and it's representative of Pennywise has infected the adults as well, so they don't protect the children. So yeah, it's gonna be all of that, and I think that's what I like about it. Chapter one so much is, again, I talk about stories where kids are at the center of the story growing up. I've been a lover of horror since I was 8 years old, and I've always been drawn to stories like Monster Squad and Goonies, and stories where kids would get together to face this evil because for some reason the adults never around. The Gate is another one that I really love because the Gate is much darker. And it chapter one, I feel like Machete did a phenomenal job of showing these kids, the so-called loser club, coming together. They're all experiencing these horrific things, and they figuring out that, hey, we have to stop it. The adults are not going to protect us. We have to do something to protect us. So I think the first movie, and I saw it. I went to cinema to see it. People were dressing up like the brother. There were balloons floating around the cinema.
What?
I
Okay.
love, yeah. This was in Movie Town, and I love watching movies that have that effect on an audience. It makes watching the movie so much more enjoyable. And I agree with Alicia. I think Bill did a phenomenal job with the character,
Oh, he
his
did.
own
He did.
version of the
Hmm.
character. Very memorable and iconic performance. I think the kids do a fantastic job. They do. Some of them don't get as much to work with as others, but I think the kids do a wonderful job. Um, Creating a group of kids that you feel like I could have been friends with these kids. Growing up, I had a group of friends like that in the neighborhood. You're a little bit too rambunctious for your own good, and you always feel like, oh, you can take, as a group like that, you feel like you can take on anything once you're together. So the first film is fantastic to me. The second film, I really, sometimes I watch it because there are a couple of there's some visual imagery that I really like the scene in the ending with what's her name, Barbara. I don't know why I'm spazzing on these people's names. Jessica Chastain's character, the shot in the bathroom with the blood, while the boy is being buried in the sand, the guy is being buried. I think that's a gorgeous shot. I think there's some really fun things in there. It just so happened that I think they went a little bit too hokey with it. It's the adults, and I just wish that Machete would have gone a bit darker. I also feel like the story is too rushed. But again, it's really hard for them to get it all done in one movie. Maybe what they should have done is, instead of trying to make it a chapter one and chapter two, maybe it would have benefited from having 3 chapters, because when you know about, there are elements to it, like the fact that Pennywise has made them forget. And
Yeah.
that is where, if that was better explained, then, viewers like Alicia wouldn't be saying, oh, there's a disconnect between the kids and the adults. I don't see it's not cohesive. There's an explanation for that disconnect, and they never really go into it, other than saying when they came back in the town, they started to remember things. You know, so without going into it too much, I totally see why chapter 2 failed. And but chapter 1 for me is definitely a standout, and a movie that thankfully I feel like you can watch it on its own without watching the second one and still get a lot out of it.